What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And today I am joined by none other than Michael Darcy from KC Sports Report and Bleacher Report. If you guys haven't checked out his post-game Bleacher Report for the Chiefs Week 2 preseason game, go ahead and check that out after this. Excuse me. And I also have to give a disclaimer as well because my webcam fell apart about 2 minutes before we started recording, and I had to tape together. So at some point, my webcam might fall flat on its face, and I have to switch to having no camera, guys. So just a heads up, that might happen. But we'll see how this goes because we got a lot to talk about, guys. We are going to do a winners and losers list from the Kansas City Chiefs Week 2 preseason game versus the Arizona Cardinals. Michael has made a list that he actually did on his Bleacher Report video. I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know what his list is, but I have mine. So we're going to be learning each other's as we go. And then, of course, for you guys watching, if you have any, go ahead and leave them down in the comments and let us know what you think of ours. But Michael, if you're ready, we'll go ahead and get into this list unless you have any opening statements to make.
No, I'm ready. I'm excited because I think that, one of the biggest takeaways I had from that preseason game last night is that we're going to talk about winners and losers, but I think the winners vastly outnumber the losers.
Yeah, I think you could say there's a lot more because, I did 4 because I wanted to make it even. I did 4 and 4, but I kind of I just threw a last loser in there because I could really only think of a big 3 that I had from watching the game. But we'll see how similar ours are. But I'll start with my first winner. I'm going to go with Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice had an absolutely fantastic game. He went from dropping his first reception or his first target of the game, and then he went on to have, I think, 6 catches for 90-something yards. I mean, the dude absolutely went off, and he showed how electric he is with the ball in his hands. He had that nifty little juke move going over the middle of the field. We don't have many receivers that can do that, and he just had big play on top of big play. And I said that if it wasn't for Justin Ross, that Rashee Rice arguably would have been, considered the star of training camp. But Justin Ross, I think, holds that title of being the star of training camp in preseason. But if it wasn't for him, Rashee Rice would be right up there. And I told you, I think the last time we did a video, Michael, but I'm starting to buy in more and more that Rashee Rice can have a very productive year as a rookie, which is not something that we quite expected coming into training camp, just the way that Andy Reid likes to use his rookie wide receivers and stuff like that. They usually don't make a huge impact as a rookie, but I'm starting to buy into Rashee Rice, man. I mean, he looks the part.
He really does. And Josh, we didn't reveal our list pregame, but Rashee Rice was the biggest winner in last night's preseason game, and it really wasn't that close. I think he had 8 catches for 96 yards, one big bomb down the field, and, right off the gate, he dropped that one target, and I was like, oh, man, not again. But he's just so comfortable and confident even as a rookie, and I'm a really big fan of this guy. I think that we're starting to see some of that hype develop, and we didn't see this with Sky Moore. Rashee Rice has done more in the preseason than Sky Moore has ever done, and that's a really good sign because it seems like the Chiefs are very comfortable with him as a talent, and maybe they're more comfortable giving him a bigger role in this season. So I think it's pretty easy to say that Rashee Rice was the biggest winner in last night's preseason game. I think he's showing number 2 wide receiver potential, maybe even potential number 1 wide receiver if he keeps progressing and developing into this star talent.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Chiefs have a bona fide number 1 on this team. There's not someone you can point to and be like, he's their number 1 receiver. It could be a number of guys, but we just don't know. There isn't a bona fide one. But I think Rashee Rice is in the running to take that role. I think there's a pretty decent chance that if we look back on this video by season's end, Rashee Rice ends up being that number 1 receiver. He has that type of potential, in my opinion. That's why I think he differs from even Sky Moore, who was still a second-round pick last year. I think Rashee Rice has legit wide receiver 1 potential. I don't see Sky Moore in that same light. Some of it is because of the fact that Rashee Rice is bigger and he can play outside as well as in the slot. Whereas some of these other Chiefs receivers don't really have that kind of versatility. Most of the receivers on this team are slot guys, but Rashee Rice can do a little bit of everything. Even though he's a bigger receiver, he can still like take handoffs and run jet sweeps and stuff. I'm pretty sure I saw a few clips of training camp where they tried that out with him. He's way more deceptive as a runner than you would think. Like even look at yesterday, that one play where he makes the catch over the middle of the field and does a little juke step on the Cardinals defender. I mean, he is electric with the ball in his hands. Like I've said it time and time again. I mean, you don't see that kind of explosiveness out of a wide receiver that size very often.
No, that spin move's crazy. Like it works so well. And I think that, like you said, he's just so explosive with the ball in his hands. And I'm really excited to see what he's going to do with Patrick Mahomes because, yeah, he's run with the ones in training camp and a little bit in the preseason, but we haven't really seen Pat obviously play up to the level of Patrick Mahomes in the preseason, as he shouldn't. But he did have that one throw yesterday to MVS where he was like jumping out of bounds and somehow almost completed it. So we're still seeing spectacular play, but these games don't mean anything. So I'm going to be very much looking forward to seeing what Rashee Rice and Patrick Mahomes can do in a game that means something.
Absolutely. And I think another important thing to acknowledge about Rashee Rice is that he's doing a lot of what he's doing with like Shane Buechele, Blaine Gabbert, those guys. I think you said it last time as well. Yeah, wait till he does it with Mahomes. Like wait till he has Mahomes throwing him the ball, and I think we'll see some good stuff. But we'll move on to our first loser. We'll alternate between winners and losers. And if I have a guy that you don't have, you can go ahead and tell me somebody else you have instead. I'm assuming we both had Rashee Rice on ours, but
Yes.
I'll go ahead with the first loser. And I'm going to say DiCaprio Bootle. DiCaprio Bootle, the cornerback, he did not have a good game. He had multiple penalties, was blowing coverages all over the place. DiCaprio Bootle's been here for a little bit now. Like he's kind of, I think, overstayed his welcome at this point. He latched onto the practice squad a couple years ago, I think originally in 2021. Never really cracked the main roster at all. It kind of felt like this was his last shot. And yesterday against the Cardinals, he didn't look very good. And I think it's safe to say that he's not making this team, especially with some of the defensive back depth that the Kansas City Chiefs added this offseason, both through the draft and bringing back some of their own guys. So DiCaprio Bootle, it's not looking good. His roster spot is being held together about as well as my webcam right now.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he holds up a little bit worse because your webcam's doing fine right now. But
yeah.
Do you remember a while ago when we were hearing Chiefs fans talk about a backfield of Dan Sorensen and DiCaprio Bootle at one point?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Thank God we never had to see that because we would have never won a game. But I think DiCaprio Bootle is definitely a good pick for a loser from that second preseason game. It was hard to pick individual players. So for my biggest loser, I honestly think the Chiefs pass rush was the biggest loser. Without Chris Jones, they're not very good. And I still think that we need to see what this unit can accomplish. And are they going to be great without Chris Jones? No. But even without Chris Jones, they're not doing anything. They can't close. They can't get to the quarterback. They have problems wrapping up even when they do get to him. So I really am concerned about this pass rush, and I think that they really weren't good against an Arizona Cardinals team that is god-awful.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting answer. I didn't consider throwing in an entire position group, but good on you because that is an important thing to point out is this pass rush is not the same without Chris Jones, and it's never going to be if they don't get Chris Jones back. I think we agree that Chris Jones will be back by the regular season, but he's not going to put himself out there in training camp or these preseason games. And so the pass rush is just kind of on their own for right now until Chris Jones gets back, and we're hoping to see something that makes us, super positive that, oh my gosh, like look at what these guys are doing without Chris Jones. Just wait till he comes back. This could be the best pass rush in the league. And it can still be a very good pass rush. Don't get me wrong. I mean, this is a team that was second in sacks last year, and I think they added more talent. They lost Frank Clark, but they brought in Charles Omenihu, who, yes, is going to miss the first 6 games. But you got Felix Anudike-Uzama, who looks pretty good. He had a couple of rushes yesterday where he just, like you said, couldn't close on the quarterback, but the ability to rush the passer is clearly there. So, yeah, man, it's just kind of ho-hum until Chris Jones gets back.
Yeah, and I didn't want to overreact because this is the preseason, but I just am worried that without Chris Jones and Omena, who's not going to be there for the first 6 games, you got a lot of inexperience. Your most experienced guy is Mike Dana, and Mike Dana is solid. Mike Dana is serviceable. Yeah. But I told my buddy as we were watching the game yesterday, I was like, if we have to ride the coattails of Mike Dana, that's a terrifying thought. Like, that is scary. Yep.
Yeah, we've seen what happens when Mike Dana is relied upon on this defensive line. We saw it at the beginning of 2021 a little bit before they acquired Melvin Ingram and stuff like that. It's just Mike Dana is the perfect rotational guy, comes in and plays a couple downs, can set the edge a little bit. But as soon as you ask him to be like a marquee pass rusher, that's when things start to go downhill. So, yeah, just praying Chris Jones comes back and hopefully we can get through the first 6 weeks just fine without Charles Omenihu. But once we get all these guys together, I am going to be pretty confident in this pass rush.
Yeah, it's just going to be a couple months from now, sadly.
Yeah, unfortunately. But moving on, second winner that I have going back to winners, I'm going to say Amir Smith-Marset, the other Chiefs wide receiver who is fighting for one of the last roster spots. And I'm going to preface with this. I don't think Amir Smith-Marset is making this team. I just don't think there's a spot for him. We just have too many talented receivers. We have too many guys that have earned their spot on this team. Okay, so here's the thing. If Justin Watson wasn't a lock to make this roster, which I think he is, we talked about last video how it just kind of feels like he's one of those guys who has earned the trust of the Chiefs coaching staff, regardless of anything. And so he's going to be here. He signed a multi-year deal this offseason. I think he's making this team. And also he had a touchdown yesterday in the game against the Cardinals as well. And I think Mahomes likes him. So I think he's going to be on this team. But if it wasn't for him, I think Amir Smith-Marset would have a pretty good chance to make it. Also with the Nico Remigio injury from practice this past week, I think it was. He got injured. Sounds like he's going to go on IR. Hasn't officially been put on IR yet, but we'll see what happens. That's besides the point, though. I don't think Amir Smith-Marset is making this team. However, with his performance that he had yesterday, he really helped himself in not only latching on to the practice squad with the Chiefs if he doesn't make it, but, latching on with another team that sees what he did with the Chiefs in preseason and they like his potential. And that's good for him. Good for Amir Smith-Marset if he is able to put enough film out there that teams like that he earns a spot somewhere else and potentially gets on the field for them. So Amir Smith-Marset is a winner for me, even if it doesn't look like he's going to make this team.
I want to remind everybody, Josh and I did not talk about these lists.
Mm-hmm.
We did not do that. But my second winner was Amir Smith-Marset. I
Wow.
think he was really good in that second preseason game. But I also will say that I was kind of on the bubble because while he is a winner, he's kind of a loser because, like you said, I don't think he's going to make this team. But you can't put him as a loser because he had a great performance. He showed up and show out. He caught that big bomb from Blaine Gabbert downfield. You saw the athleticism on some of those really tight-knit catches. I'm very interested to see what happens with him because I don't think that he's going to last on the practice squad. I think he gets picked up by, maybe a former or not a former Chiefs team, but a team led by some former Chiefs employees, maybe the Bears or the Commanders. Yeah. I could definitely see Smith-Marset going there. And it's unfortunate because the Chiefs have so many talented wide receivers, which I just did not think they were going to have this problem, that he's just the odd man out. But I do think he was a winner. I think he had a great performance. And while he's not going to make this roster, that game yesterday probably kept him in the league for another couple years. Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree. And you mentioned also another team that employs a former Chiefs employee. I'm pretty sure Amir Smith-Marset was on the Bears before he came here. So, now don't quote me on that, but I could see Ryan Poles circling back around and bringing Amir Smith-Marset back. And the Bears need all the wide receiver help they can get. So that would make a lot of sense. But either way, good for Amir Smith-Marset because, like you said, I think he extended his life in this league for just a little bit longer.
Yeah, I definitely think that while he's not going to make this roster, that was the game of his life. He needed to have that, and he definitely put the tape out there for some other team to say, you know what, we want that guy to be our fifth or sixth option. And who knows, maybe his role gets bigger and he could potentially be something. But, it all stemmed from that preseason game.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so next loser. Now, I'm looking at my list right now. I kind of want to save some of these losers for the next winner because they're kind of related to each other. So I'm going to boost one up on the list that I planned on talking about later, or that I actually put lower on the list, but I'm going to say it now. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He ran with the ones on offense again this game. But this time he just, I think, did not look very good. I think he averaged like 2.5 yards per carry. He basically was the reason that the last offensive drive for the ones stalled out in that preseason game. I'm just done with the CEH experience, man. I think the Chiefs are too. I think the entire reason that he's running with the ones in these games is so the Chiefs can showcase him for a potential trade. And you'll know also why CEH is being mentioned now on my losers list, because there are other guys on this team that I think are just slowly knocking CEH down the pecking order. And I don't see a place for him on this team. I'd be shocked. I'd be floored if CEH was still on this team by the regular season. The Chiefs they've tried with him so many times to like get him involved in this offense, make him a focal point in this offense, and it just doesn't work, man. Like I've been saying this for years. It doesn't work. CEH doesn't work. He might work on another team, but he just doesn't work on this one. He doesn't have the speed to get to the edge still. Not that like that was ever going to change though. I'm done with the whole CEH experience, but you know that already. Everyone here knows that.
Well, Josh and I have twin telepathy because I had Clyde Edwards-Helaire as my second loser too. I mean, it's really hard and kind of sad that the Chiefs put him out there every week just to fail. Like at this point, we know what we're going to get with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We're not going to see some magical turnaround where he becomes a franchise running back and a guy that we'd feel comfortable taking the reins as RB1. It's not going to happen. He's not better than Pacheco. He's not better than McKinnon. I would argue he's less valuable than Deneric Prince. Why is he ever going to make this roster? I agree with what you said 100%. The reason that he's gotten so much traction in the first two preseason games is to showcase his trade value. And it's wild that even while the Chiefs are trying to showcase his trade value, he's still worthless. Is anybody watching is anybody watching Clyde Edwards-Helaire and just seeing what he's able to do? And you're like, oh, I want that guy. I'm going to give up anything for that guy. If I'm Clyde, I'm saying, you know what? I might even request a trade or just request release because I just don't think it's helping his cause because I don't think he's making this team. I think he's probably going to get put on the practice squad, and I don't know how that's going to work, but we just know we have in Clyde.
Well, that's interesting from you. So you think Clyde is like if he makes it to cut down day, he's getting cut. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because the way that I explained it to my co-host on Bleacher Report, it's messed up. It really is. And the only reason, I'll say this, I've been on this train from the very beginning, the only reason that Clyde Edwards-Helaire will make the roster in 2023 was because he was a first-round draft pick. That is the only reason why he would get the nod over a guy like Deneric Prince. And I think that when you're getting towards slimming down the roster and making those final decisions, you got to go with the guy that offers more. Who's more valuable to your team? Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the most easily replaceable player you could possibly have. He doesn't do anything exceptionally well. And I think Deneric Prince offers more in the return game than Clyde Edwards-Helaire ever has. So when it comes time to, take that third running back, we're going to take that third running back that can also field kicks.
Yeah, I think you said it best. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is kind of clinging as hard as he can to that first-round draft pick status. He's probably hanging on to that harder than this tape is hanging on to my webcam right now. It's about to fall apart. Yeah. Overused joke of the day. But, yeah, I mean, you summed it up pretty much better than I could have. I mean, I'm surprised though that you said that you see him getting cut because I think there's still a chance that he makes this team. If they can't find a trade partner, I expect them to look for a trade partner. But that's interesting that you have him just getting cut if he
I
doesn't
just
get
wonder if
traded.
he'd even play on the practice squad. Do you think he has the
I
not
don't
emotional
know.
maturity, but I
Well, I don't. Is he even eligible for the practice squad? Because usually, I know there's like some time secured threshold that if you hit it, you're not eligible for the
I'm not
practice squad.
sure. I'm not sure.
It's kind of weird because I know you can add like old veterans to your practice squad, but like there's some players that are like veterans that you can't. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
But again, during that playoff run when the Chiefs had banged up running backs all over the board, Clyde Edwards-Helaire still didn't get to suit up. And that just kind of shows you how much they value him as a player.
Yeah, I thought that did him in. Like I thought he was done after that. Like I'm surprised he even like made it to training camp because like they just it sounded like he was healthy. They just made him inactive for the Super Bowl. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's not a good thing. Not a good thing.
no, yeah. Anyway, we'll get back to our winners because these are all kind of interconnected. These next few winners and losers, but my next winner, I'm going to go with LaMichael P. Ryan, the running back that the Chiefs picked up here a few weeks ago. He has been getting significant run in the preseason games, and I'll just say it now. I'll just get to my next loser because, like I said, these guys are interconnected. I'm going to say running back Deneric Prince is a loser from the last preseason game because LaMichael P. Ryan appears to have jumped Deneric Prince on the depth chart. Um, Deneric Prince was out there with, I think, like the 3s and 4s last night and got a touchdown late in the fourth quarter of that preseason game. I thought Deneric Prince was a guy that was a lock to make this roster just last week, and now I'm not so sure because like LaMichael P. Ryan has asserted himself, I think, as maybe number 3 right behind Pacheco and McKinnon. We already gave our thoughts on Clyde, so that opens up a spot for P. Ryan. I think if you look at the opportunities that P. Ryan's been given compared to the opportunities Deneric Prince has been given, it's clear where they are in the pecking order. I don't know if you noticed that or if you had the same guys on your list, but Deneric Prince might benefit from a year on the practice squad, or he might just make it onto the team if they do get rid of Clyde and they still carry 4 running backs. But P. Ryan seems to have been a solid addition to this team. At least the Chiefs view him that way.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being the case. I could see P. Ryan beating out Prince. It's kind of weird that I haven't really thought about it too much. I've just been very focused on Clyde not being on the roster, if that makes sense. Like, I don't
Yeah.
really care which one takes his spot. I just don't really want Clyde on the team because I think
Yeah.
Prince and P. Ryan kind of offer a breath of fresh air, something new, something that we haven't seen. And that's intriguing in and of itself. But I do think that it's going to come down to who's more impactful on special teams. I'm not sure if P. Ryan is a guy that would want to play as much on special teams as a guy like Deneric Prince probably would do. But yeah, that is a pretty good option for who'd be a good winner from this game.
Well, so now that I've said that and I just revealed my third winner and third loser, um, who do you have instead? Because it sounds like we have somebody different.
So my third winner, keeping in theme with the wide receivers, I think Justin Ross is just a winner. And I just had this thought because while he didn't have an explosive game in terms of like catching touchdown passes,
when you were 2 catches for 18 yards.
2 catches for 18 yards. But when you were watching him, he ran with Patrick Mahomes in the ones. And whenever that happens, you got to think, okay, this guy is getting some good looks. This guy is in high favor with the Chiefs. And this is a guy that the Chiefs are looking at to make this roster. And I was watching him a lot yesterday. And while he didn't have any, explosive numbers and giant catches, if you just watched him run routes, he had a couple defenders shook. I mean, there was one play where I think he got open in the back corner of the end zone. And I can't remember if it had to be Gabbard because Bichelle didn't miss a pass at all.
Yeah, I think it was Gabbard.
It was Gabbard, but Gabbard missed him on a touchdown. Would have been so easy. And Mahomes threw it at his feet. So while he didn't, get a great QB room yesterday to work with, I just watching him run routes, the separation, you can't teach that. Like that is just God-given ability. And I think that ability is going to translate whether or not the ball gets put in his hands. So I think that Justin Ross has maybe been the biggest winner all offseason for the Chiefs. And coming out of this game, seeing how he ran with the ones and he looked good in his routes, honestly, I think he's going to make this team. And for that reason, I think he is a giant winner.
Yeah, I made a video on him earlier today about how I think he's primed to make this team at this point. I actually didn't put him down as a winner just because I feel like it was already kind of concluded after the first preseason game that he was going to make this team. And just like everyone already knows, Justin Ross is a winner. I think that's obvious. But if it wasn't for probably LaMichael Pirine, Ross would have been one of my 4 winners. He, like you said, the stat line doesn't overwhelm you from yesterday, but the route running, he would have had a touchdown and more yards had the quarterback placed just a slightly better ball. And I think it was Gabbert because it couldn't have been Shane Buechele because I know Shane Buechele was like a perfect 10 for 10 yesterday.
Yeah.
He didn't have any incompletions. So yeah, Justin Ross, I think, is making this team. And not only that, but I think it's even safe to say that he has a really good shot to contribute and contribute a lot for this team in the regular season. I don't think he's a guy that's going to make the team and then he's inactive on game day or never really does anything. I think Mahomes really likes him. Mahomes even mentioned how he's kind of different than anybody else they have. The talent is so clearly there, and the route running, I mean, the crispness in his routes for a guy that's 6'4", 210 pounds is really impressive. And yeah, I think he's making this team pretty easily at this point. And I do project the Chiefs keeping 7 wide receivers just because of the uncertainty with Kadarius Toney constantly. And so I think you almost have to keep a 7th receiver just to always be Kadarius Toney insurance, I guess. And that opens up a spot for Justin Ross.
Yeah, it is kind of scary, though, that 2 of your 7 potential wide receivers have bad injury histories. That is not great. But if there's any consolation for the Chiefs carrying that many wide receivers, it's that while they might have some injury problems, the other 5 are very solid options. I think that might be my biggest overarching point coming out of this preseason is that the Chiefs don't have a wide receiver problem. We thought that they were going to be in some trouble and who is going to step up. And seemingly like it always does with the Kansas City Chiefs, they always step up and they always find a way to figure it out, even when on paper it doesn't look so good. And the wide receiver room is a perfect example of that because I think this wide receiver room, while they don't have any stars, they don't have a number 1 wide receiver, they got a bunch of guys that are capable of doing 700-800 yards worth of damage in a season. And that in and of itself is a really good quality to have in a room.
Yeah, I think they got a lot of talent. They have a lot of depth and a lot of guys that can do a little bit of everything. They just don't have the bona fide number 1 receiver. But I do like what this wide receiver room brings to the table. And I think as training camp and preseason have progressed, my concern for the receiver room has died down a little bit. Yes, I still have my questions about this group, who's going to emerge and what everybody's roles are. But I think I feel a lot more comfortable with this group than I did before. Whereas before I felt like we probably still need to add a veteran receiver. But I think.
Sorry,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say you were able to give your winner and loser kind of in the same breath, and I can kind of do that with my loser as well.
Yeah, go ahead, for sure.
The same way that I think Justin Ross was really good, even though he didn't have a monster game. A guy that kind of underwhelmed me just because we didn't really see a lot of him was Richie James. I was expecting a lot more. Now, I still think he's a lock to make this team. A guy that the Chiefs are obviously very confident in after that first preseason game against the Saints. And like I said, it's hard to pick losers because I think that there were a lot more winners than there were losers. And so the losers really weren't losers, but they just weren't winners. So Richie James just kind of falls in that category for me. Not worried about his roster security, not worried about him not making the team. But I was just kind of confused why we didn't really see him do anything worth talking about yesterday.
Yeah, so I noticed so I found this tweet real quick while you were saying that from Matt Lane of KCSN, And he said, found it interesting that Richie James was the first team kick returner and punt returner, saw some action the first drive as part of the wide receiver rotation and had a play designed for him. And then was the first wide receiver out of the game, is what he noted, which I think is a positive thing. Like his spot on this team is pretty much locked up. And so there isn't a huge need for him to be out there because the Chiefs already know he's making this team. Like he has nothing to prove. And so they're giving more of these wide receiver reps to the young guys who still might be on the bubble or are still trying to prove themselves, and more reps for the rookies and guys like that. So I totally get your concern, but I think Richie James not doing so much in the last preseason game is more of a good thing that his spot on this team is pretty much guaranteed. I don't think he's going anywhere.
I don't either. Like I think he's probably going to make. Well, I know he's going to make this team. It's just kind of where he slots in.
Yeah, but if you wanted to call him a loser from the game just because of the lack of impact, sure, that totally makes sense. So on to the last winner and loser. So my last winner, I'm going to go with Shane Buechele. He was a perfect 10 for 10, but I think 105 yards, a touchdown. And then did he have 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing?
He definitely had 1 rushing. I don't know if he had 1 throwing.
I can't remember if he did, but either way, he was pretty much perfect yesterday. And like, that was the moment that I go, wow, like Shane Buechele looks awesome. Like this is the reason that the Chiefs kept him for so long. This is the reason that they protected Shane Buechele from getting picked up by another team, and they promoted him to the main roster so he wouldn't go anywhere else. And if it wasn't for Blaine Gabbert being here and providing that veteran presence, I think Shane Buechele would be the number 2. And honestly, if you just asked me, I think he should be the number 2. I think he offers a higher ceiling, but the problem is, of course, that the Chiefs value the veteran more so than the higher upside. And as long as Mahomes is healthy, there's not really going to be an opportunity for Shane Buechele to get real game reps. So they're going to take the guy that has given real game reps in his NFL career, has a long NFL career as a backup, knows what it takes, yada, yada. And that's Blaine Gabbert. Like Blaine Gabbert is probably going to be the backup quarterback, but I really hope that Shane Buechele gets his shot at some point. And I hope that, well, I don't hope that Patrick Mahomes gets injured, but if he ever did, or if he had to come out, that Shane Buechele can step in and show everybody why he's still in Kansas City. And then hopefully we could flip him for an asset later down the line. But Shane Buechele looked legit.
It's funny you say that because I was between him and another guy for my final winner, and they're both winners, but Buechele, in my opinion, is a winner the same way that Amir Smith-Marset is a winner, where, yeah, he had a great game, but it's not going to really mean anything in the long run.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks because Shane Buechele just kind of falls into that football politics where it's kind of like when you graduate college and they really wish that you had a college diploma, but also 10 years of work experience when you just got out of school. So it kind of just falls like that because Blaine Gabbert, while he didn't really do anything worth noting in the league, is always going to get the edge over Shane Buechele, who's done nothing. He's just the practice squad guy that they've been working, and I think that he probably should be that second quarterback, the guy that backs up Patrick Mahomes. Will he? No. I don't think that Andy Reid feels comfortable enough giving that job to Shane Buechele. It is interesting, though, that they let him come in first before Blaine Gabbert. I don't know if that means anything. I don't think it does, but just interesting how the order was different than it was last week. So I think that Shane Buechele is a winner the same way that, Amir Smith-Marset was a winner, and where, they had a great game, but it really didn't mean anything for their final roster spot. But a guy that I wanted to talk about really quickly, my 4th winner, Matt Bushman. I think Matt Bushman was the 4th winner in this game. He didn't have an explosive game by any means.
Good one.
I think he's just kind of a product of circumstance where Jody Fortson went on IR. They don't have a 4th tight end right now. Matt Bushman, a guy that has been in camp for the last 2 years, I think he's primed to make this team. And if that's assuming that they carry 4 tight ends, because we talk about the Chiefs carrying 3 running backs and 7 wide receivers and 4 tight ends, eventually they're going to have to give somewhere. And tight end could be that position. But if Andy Reid wants to carry 4 tight ends, without Jody Fortson, Matt Bushman kind of becomes tight end number 4.
Yeah, that's a development that we didn't talk about that happened since the last time we made a video. Uh, Jody Fortson went on IR. I already thought Jody Fortson's roster spot was in trouble, and that was because
Yeah.
of Matt Bushman and the fact that Jody Fortson is always injured. But Matt Bushman really impresses me. I like that you have him down as a winner. I don't know if he's going to make this team because the 7 wide receivers, and also I don't know what they're going to do with the running backs yet, and that matters too. That factors in. But I like that one. I like Matt Bushman a lot. I think he has high receiving upside. Like the dude can run, and he's got good hands too. Um, if he makes this team, I'd be really excited to see how the Chiefs potentially use him. I think he does have a lot of receiving upside. Like I love Matt Bushman. Um, I'm gonna say though, my last loser, because you mentioned how it kind of becomes a numbers game.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with Lucas Niang as my last loser, the offensive lineman. Even though that he's under contract, he came from the same draft classes like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so it's kind of like CEH is here because he was drafted, and there's some level of investment with him that makes it hard to let him go. I feel like it's the same with Lucas Niang. He was a third round pick just a few years ago, but I just think he's been passed up by a lot of guys. I think he's been passed up by Wanya Morris. Donovan Smith is obviously starting at left tackle. Jawan Taylor's starting at right tackle. Then you have other guys too that are kind of fighting there. Prince Tega Winago. And Niang just doesn't look very good. I know he was playing deep into the fourth quarter of the preseason game versus the Cardinals. So I don't know if it's looking so great for Lucas Niang. And he could be a guy that the Chiefs maybe even dangle as trade bait for another team saying, hey, we don't really have room for this guy. We still think he has a little bit of upside, some untapped potential, but we're not going to be the ones to find out. And then that would obviously open up a spot for somebody else to make this team at a different position. Different position, like you were talking about Matt Bushman at tight end. So Lucas Niang is my last loser from this game.
You know, I didn't actually have a fourth loser, but it kind of fits in the theme of something that we talked about last night on the live stream. And we saw this months ago, so it's not new news. And maybe I just didn't pay attention or really think about it enough in the moment. But the fact that Chiefs are paying Jawan Taylor so much money to play right tackle kind of bothers me. Like, I don't know what it was. I saw a play last night where he kind of got pushed around, and I don't think he had a bad game by any means, but then it just got me thinking the Chiefs gave that guy so much money to play right tackle when in the past it's kind of been a revolving door, and they've made it work, and they've paid guys like Andrew Wiley basically nothing to be serviceable, above average right tackles, and then they go out this offseason and pay Jawan Taylor a bunch of money with the expectation that he's going to play left tackle, and not seeing him left tackle. I'm kind of like, why do we pay him all this money? And Donovan Smith, I don't really feel very good about him just because he's an aging left tackle that can't really, handle some guys with speed. He had a lot of holding stuff last year. So while I don't think that the tackles are necessarily losers from last night's game, I do want to kind of point it out because the tackles are an area in which the Chiefs have kind of always gone, I don't want to say cheap, but they've always made do with what they had. And it's just kind of weird from a roster building perspective when you got guys like Chris Jones sitting on his ass at home that you pay a guy like Jawan Taylor that much money to play a significantly less important position.
Yeah, well, they never have paid a ton for their tackles, not really since Andy Reid has been here. Eric Fisher wasn't like, top of the market money. Mitchell Schwartz was probably underpaid for the entirety of his career. I'm going to push back just a little bit, though. When they made the Donovan Smith signing, they were like, yeah, Jawan Taylor's playing right tackle after they told us all off season that he was going to play left tackle. Even I was sitting here like, what the heck? So not only is this guy not playing left tackle, but you paid him $20 million and now he's a right tackle making $20 million a year. Like that just doesn't really make any sense. But on the flip side, they're going cheap at left tackle. Donovan Smith isn't making that much, and it seems like they really like Wanya Morris for the future. Maybe because he's been playing at left tackle in preseason. If he eventually becomes a left tackle, he's going to be on a rookie contract, so you're not really paying anything for your left tackle. It's just right tackle that you're spending money on. And I also wouldn't totally rule out that Jawan Taylor could still play left tackle
Yeah.
in the future, but that this year is a transition year where they're going to have a veteran stopgap at left tackle, and then maybe they still coach Jawan Taylor to transition to left tackle on the side, and then he takes over that position next season. I still think they have a lot of versatility, a lot of options in what they can do with their offensive line and with their tackle spots. Yeah, it doesn't look great when you're paying a right tackle $20 million, but I think Jawan Taylor is going to end up being worth it. And
Yeah.
I think the tackles have been upgraded. I'm not a huge fan of Donovan Smith. I wasn't when the signing was made, but he has had a good preseason. I can't lie about that. Now, it hasn't been very many snaps for him, so we'll see what happens in the regular season. And I know he did deal with an injury last year. Um, and a lot of people will talk about the injury when you bring up his penalty numbers, but I'll have people know that his penalties have always been a problem. That wasn't just because of injuries last year. I think I put out a tweet. Now I don't remember. I think it was he was averaging like 10 penalties per season, like for his career. So penalties have always been an issue with him. We'll see if that gets cleaned up. But yeah, I'll just offer a little bit of pushback by saying that while the Chiefs, yes, are paying a lot for their right tackle, they're paying pretty much nothing for left tackle. So I think it'll end up working out.
I think that might have been what I was trying to say, is that I don't have a problem with them paying that much money for a tackle, but I think right tackle, we can both agree, is less important than left tackle. But I could also see it from the perspective kind of similarly to what they did with Joe Tooney, because paying Joe Tooney all that money as a left guard was insane.
Yeah.
And it's worked out really well. So I can see that logic with Jawan Taylor. I just think that, with left tackle, the Chiefs, you don't want to mess around with that. You don't want to have a revolving door at that position, especially with 15. And I just think that it probably would have been smart to find that guy to be your anchor at left tackle. Wanya Morris could be the future, but even then, I'm going to want to see him take some snaps, maybe without Patrick Mahomes in the game, because I don't really want my quarterback's faith left up to a rookie.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned like Patrick Mahomes and winning him upright. I think maybe that's what motivated them to go out and sign Donovan Smith. Not that Donovan Smith is great, but it's like this plan is kind of risky. Like, what if Jawan Taylor doesn't work out at left tackle? Then we're kind of screwed. So let's bring this guy in that's still out there, that offers somewhat of a steady presence. And then, like I said, maybe it's still possible in the future that Jawan Taylor does eventually transition to left tackle. Or Jawan, did I say Jawan Taylor? You know what I mean. But
well,
yeah.
And one thing,
is that all?
Well, I don't think he'd ever do it, but Joe Tooney did fill in once for I think Orlando Brown Jr. in Cincinnati when he got hurt. He's pretty damn good. So if Joe Tooney wants to make that switch, I'm all for that too. If he wants to.
Yeah, no, I Joe Tooney, I think he's a good stopgap player as well, a good spot starter, but you don't want him out there full time. But hopefully we never have to discuss that possibility. But yeah, is that all we got for our 4 winners, 4 losers? I know you have to hit the road soon here. So anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think we definitely made a good segue into talking about some of the other stuff, because we're still watching the Chris Jones situation. We talked about the defensive line and even the offensive line and how that's going to look. And I think our winners and losers were both similar in a lot of ways. Like we had Clyde, we had the wide receiver pair. So I do think that we're kind of on the same level in terms of thinking who has had a really good preseason and who has, just hasn't been that good. But Josh, I'm just ready for the regular season to start. I don't really care about this preseason stuff anymore.
Yeah, I mean, usually the teams are all but decided by the 3rd preseason game. At that point, it's just reps. It's just putting guys out there. I don't think the starters will play very much in the 3rd preseason game. I think it'll be a lot of the other guys that are trying to put out tape to potentially catch on elsewhere. Like you said, I am so ready for the regular season, man. Like 1 more week of preseason and we'll be there. I know the preseason games are important though, but damn, I'm just ready for regular football again.
The first 2 are definitely the most important. I remember a long time ago, I think maybe this is how it was when there was 4 preseason games, that 3rd preseason game was the big one. And then in the fourth one, they rested everybody. But yeah, that meaningless preseason game at Arrowhead's not going to be a super action-packed one, but it'll be fun to watch, and seeing guys that are on the bubble, well, not necessarily on the bubble, but seeing guys that are fighting for other roster spots to put tape out there for other teams to come pick them up.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much like I said. But it's also an important milestone for us, too, heading into this next NFL regular season. Because what is this, like year 3, year 4 since we started doing videos together? Like,
it's got to be.
Time has flown by.
Yeah.
It really has.
Who was our preseason guy like years ago? Like, I'm trying to think at the very beginning. I remember hearing DiCaprio Boodle, but like not super into DiCaprio Boodle. There was a guy that Jody Fortson, he's panned out pretty well. Justin Ross has been here for a while.
Devin Key, I talked about him.
Devin Key, yeah. That was a Lucas favorite too.
Yeah, that was a Lucas guy. Yeah, Lucas liked him. And then we watched the preseason games, and it's like, he's kind of terrible. It's funny you bring him up because I just mentioned him in the last video that I did. I was talking about how there's always guys that kind of are stars of training camp, and then it's like, oh, watch out, this guy could like make the team and crack the rotation. And then the preseason games start, and they just look like they don't even belong out there.
There's a reason we put the pads on. There's a reason why we play these games, and that's why. Yep.
Yeah, the preseason games are important. I mean, training camp is part of it, and that's where you earn reps in the preseason game. But if you don't show out in preseason, you're probably not going to make this team. But yeah, we're going on a little bit longer here than we expected to. So again, I know you got to hit the road soon. So why don't you go ahead and plug your stuff, tell everyone where they can find you, and all that good stuff.
You guys can find me on YouTube at KC Sports Report. You guys can find me on social media, Instagram, KC_Sports Report, and Twitter at KC Sports Report. The personal at the Michael Darcy, and all the Bleacher Report stuff. I reposted on my channel, which that's awesome that they let me do that. So most of the Bleacher Report stuff you can find on the YouTube channel. And that's where you can find me.
Make sure you check all that out, guys. I'll have it all in the description for this video. As for me, you're already here. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like and share so more Chiefs fans can find this. Let us know your thoughts on what we had to say down in the comments. But with all that being said, make sure you check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com, and we will see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs.